Good morning, fellow debt slayers. It's Stephen with Debt Free Results. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Tuesday, August 12th at about 11:30, and I wanted to give you a story, tell you a story about one of my new customers, one of my clients, and explain his journey. So he works for one of the delivery companies, and I had met him about a month and a half ago. And how we met was I was at the car, and my license plate says debt free. And he stopped, and I didn't know him, but he stopped and he said, "I just paid off my car last week." And this was about a month ago. And I said, "Fantastic. That's, wonderful news. I love to hear people paying off debts ahead of time." And he said that he had paid off his car loan 2.5 years early. And I said, just the interest alone, you're going to save a lot of money on that. And he said, "Yeah, I feel so good about paying off the car." And I said, "That's fantastic." And he had to go and I had to go. So we just, ended the conversation there. Then a couple of weeks later, we ran into each other again. And I, because I didn't have enough time to talk to him the first time, I had asked him, what he was doing now on his, did he have more debts? And he said yes. And I said, what's his plan now? And he didn't have a plan. He had this great success in reference to paying off the car, but he didn't have a plan to attack the rest of the debt that he had. And so I said, "You know what, here's my card. Give me a call. Let's sit down for an hour and let me understand what you're doing and how you plan on getting there." And I said, "I also want you to think about what your why is." And he said, "My why? What do you mean by that?" And I said, "Why are you doing this? There's got to be a reason why. So think about that." I said, I don't want an answer now. I said, "Think about it and get back to me." So 2 weeks ago, it was end of July, beginning of August, he gave me a call and we sat down for coffee. And I said, first off, congratulations on paying off the car, and that's fantastic news. And I asked him, what his car payment was and what his next step was moving forward. And he goes, I really don't have a plan. And I said, "Well, do you have a budget?" And he said, "No, I don't have a budget." And he goes, I said, "Do you have a bank account or a checking account?" And he goes, "No." And so I said, "Okay." I said, "That's fine." So we sat down and talked, and what he wants to do in a couple of years is he wants to buy a house. So that is his why. So I said, you should write that on a piece of paper and put that on your refrigerator so you see it every day. And then I said, you have to do something with that money that you were paying your car off. And I said, how much was that? And he said, $310 a month. And I said, so what I would do is set up a bank account. I said, go to your bank. And he goes, I don't live in this town. I live one town over. I said, that's fine. There are banks, everywhere. And I said, what I would do is go and set up a high yield savings account. And he goes, well, what's that? And I said, there are checking accounts and savings accounts, and they're all, 0.25%, maybe 0.1%. I said, then there are these high yield savings accounts where you can get anywhere between 3.5% to 5% interest, and it's really just a high yield savings account. So he said, well, what's that? And I explained to him what the yield was and how this will work. And I said, you should do that because that way you're getting more interest on your savings than you are in a regular checking account or a savings account. And So we left the meeting, and he appreciated the time, and he got a lot out of it. And so he signed up for a session, and we met earlier this week, and we sat down, and I said, I need all of your bills so that we know what your debt is, and that's the big picture, and then we're going to narrow it down. So his homework for this week was to compile all his bills: cell phone, cable, car insurance, everything. And then we're going to take it and we're going to put it into a spreadsheet and build a budget. But explaining to him what the high yield savings account was, and being able to take his car payment that he has now and rolling it into a payment plan for the credit cards, this was very beneficial for him because he didn't have a plan. And he will have a plan once we get everything together. But I also, when we left the meeting, he was so excited because now he has an idea as to what he wants and how he's going to get debt-free. And so I thought I'd just share that with you because it's nice to hear stories about people paying off debt, but then also being able to sit back and say, you know what, I can't do this myself because I really don't know how to do a budget, and I don't know how to pay off bills in a timely fashion so I can become debt-free. And it's an 80-20 mental to physical attack on a plan. So once you get your mind around the fact that you have to change your lifestyle and you have to change how you spend money and where you spend money, and once you get that change and wrap that around why you want to do that, then it's not as difficult as if you're just going ahead and trying to do it but not understanding why. So I hope this was helpful. If you're paying off your debt and you have a story, send me a note. Hit the like button down below. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook. And if there's anything that I can help you with in reference to your debt and managing your debt, please reach out and we'll be more than happy to help you out. I am a Dave Ramsey certified debt coach, and I have been 100% debt free since 2018, when my wife and I paid off our $90,000 of debt to be debt free, and we have been ever since. So that's exciting, and I know that I can do it. I've helped many clients become debt free and build a plan and understand what your why is, and I know that I can help you too. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure that you don't spend money. Save money if you can. Always pay with cash. Don't use your credit cards. I know you can do this because I have faith in you. And we'll be back in touch very soon. All right, God bless and have a great day. This is Stephen Gallagher, Debt Slayer. Bye-bye.